Good evening, everyone. Thank you. This is so wonderful. I don't really feel like I need to introduce myself. So many friends around the virtual table here tonight. So no, really thanks everyone for joining, and to everyone who's trickling in. Thank you so much for taking some time to join us tonight. So the reason we are coming together today, this evening, is to hear a little bit about really what's been going on with in Latin America with our partners over the past year and some. I mean, I don't need to do much of an introduction about the impact of COVID on all of our lives and all of our work. That all really goes without saying. We've had now one other conversation where we really tried to dive into some of the issues, that have come out since COVID hit. Grappling with things like, the impact on poverty and inequality around the world, and what does that mean for an NGO like ours? But we looked at it a bit at a global scale, and with one example of our country, of one country in Africa, that was Uganda. But we all have a big interest in Latin America, and a couple of partner organizations that are just so dear and close to our hearts that we all were very eager to have this kind of conversation where we really just look at a few cases, a few country cases and partners of ours, and invite you to the table to hear from them, and also to ask your questions. Because as much as this past year has been difficult and challenging and so much suffering, one of the beautiful things that we were able to experience was the amazing response of people who really, it felt like people's hearts were open, and the empathy that we felt for each other close by, but then also around the world, was just really, really awakened. So the level of engagement with donors like you really increased a lot last year, and it was really a beautiful thing to be able to bridge, for those of us here in the US, who felt maybe, of course there was suffering right in our doorstep, but we are also very aware of the pain and suffering that's all around the world. So we basically just wanted to have this conversation here with a few of our friends who we'll introduce in just a second. Before we do that, we want to share with you a very short video that we recently produced, which maybe many of you have already seen, but we didn't want to miss this opportunity to share it with you in case you haven't. It just gives a quick intro to who we are as AFSI USA and what we're about. You'll see Socorro, who is one of our guests tonight, featured in this little video. So Roberta, go ahead and show our friends our video, and then we'll go in to the panel. Thank you.
At AFSI USA, we believe your circumstances don't define you. We build relationships to address challenges like poverty and disease, and unlock a new outlook on life. In Mexico, Socorro empowers families through nutrition and education so kids can reach their full potential.
Queremos que puedan despertar sus deseos para que sean capaces de reconocer que son hechos para el infinito y puedan moverse hacia él.
In Uganda, Rose walks with HIV-positive women, helping them recognize their human dignity and find joy.
Every human being is not defined by the problems, by the sickness, by the poverty, not even richness, but you are greater than what you can imagine.
People are at the heart of what we do. We connect you directly with changemakers like Socorro and Rose. Together, we can build resilience and lasting solutions.
So as you can see, what we are really about is supporting places, organizations, works, which are spaces of education and affection, right? Where we can reach the most vulnerable, the poor, the most vulnerable, but where our work, or where we look at the other, not for their vulnerability, but for their potential and for their value, right? With, full of that belief that they were made for the infinite. So what we're going to share with you 3 partners of ours from the region. Socorro, who's the Executive Director of Crecemos Dijo in Oaxaca, Mexico, who you saw in the video, is with us tonight. And then Stefania Famlonga, who's the Director of the Fundación Sembrar Foundation in Quito, Ecuador. And Adriano Gaved, who supports the agricultural school Reina de los Apóstoles, Queen of the Apostles, in the Amazon region of Manaus, Brazil. So 3 different projects, 3 different works with some very similar characteristics, vision, and methodology. So each of them are shared a little bit of their story. We've asked them basically 3 questions. One is just to tell us a little bit about the work, where they work, what's their methodology, a little bit about the history. Secondly, we've asked them to share with us what COVID has caused them, or how COVID has caused them to rethink their relationship with families and beneficiaries, and what they've learned from that. And then third, we've asked them just to help to share, if they have one, a story of a family or of a person whose experience in this time kind of exemplifies the methodology, or maybe even challenge the methodology. So Stefania and Socorro are going to speak in Spanish. So Colin and I will translate. So hopefully this will go smoothly, but bear with us. We're not professional translators, so we'll do our best to communicate as best as we can what our friends are saying. Please think of any questions that you have. You can feel free to ask them in the chat box, but the presentations will be short, and then we'll have plenty of time to have a conversation with all of you afterwards. So we're going to begin with Stefania. And so you can get in your minds that we're going to Quito, Ecuador, and over to you, Steffi.
Buenas noches.
Good evening, everyone.
Siento mucho no hablar su idioma. Y nada, quisiera que se ponga el video inicial. Gracias.
So we're going to show an initial video about Fundación Sembrar.
En los barrios Pizulí-La Roldós existen altos índices de delincuencia, pobreza y desempleo, problemas que además se vieron agravados por la pandemia y los encierros. En efecto, los niños menores de 5 años experimentaron un aumento de desnutrición, se atrasaron en la escuela y sufrieron traumas familiares como la pérdida de trabajo de sus padres o violencia intrafamiliar. Desde el comienzo de la pandemia, Fundación Sembrar ha ayudado a estos niños y sus familias brindando desarrollo educativo integral. Creemos que la educación de primera infancia rompe el ciclo de la pobreza, fortalece a las familias, a las comunidades y prepara a estos niños para una vida feliz. Ofrecemos actividades educativas dinámicas y acompañamiento personalizado para que los niños puedan desarrollar habilidades, construir relaciones sanas y descubrir el mundo y sus posibilidades. Les damos una comida equilibrada diaria y les enseñamos hábitos saludables y nutritivos. Nuestro programa integra la vida familiar, por lo que ofrecemos talleres para padres y visitas domiciliarias para apoyar el desarrollo familiar. Con su apoyo, podemos cambiar la vida de estos 200 niños, sus familias y las comunidades.
Entonces, yo soy Stefania y soy italiana y vivo en Ecuador desde el 2003.
I'm Stefania. I'm from Italy and I live in Quito, Ecuador since 2003.
Cuando empezó la actividad de Fundación Sembrar.
When Fundación activities began.
Cuando empecé a vivir aquí, cuando empecé a ir en estos barrios marginales que acabamos de ver, me impactaron desde el inicio 2 cosas.
When I began to walk through the neighborhoods that we've just seen, two main things stuck out to me.
La pobreza material, por supuesto, que hasta ahora sigue siendo bastante grande, hasta la falta de servicios básicos como el agua, el alcantarillado, etcétera.
the material poverty that continues to be a problem today, including the lack of access to basic services like water and electricity.
Pero sobre todo la pobreza humana, la pobreza cultural, que se manifestaba en la violencia, en las relaciones, en la instintividad en las relaciones, en la falta de perspectiva, en la falta de esperanza.
But above all, the human poverty, spiritual poverty that manifests itself in relationships, in violence in relationships, and a lot of strife in communities.
Nosotros empezamos desde el inicio con un trabajo educativo dirigido a los niños chiquitos, pero sobre todo a las madres, para enseñarles a ser madres, madres muchas veces adolescentes.
We began a program for the kids, but above all, integrated with a program for the mothers to teach them how to be good mothers. Many of them were teen mothers.
Porque nuestro enfoque desde el inicio sí ha sido llegar a los niños a través de los padres, porque creemos en la familia.
Our goal from the beginning, and it continues to be, to reach the kids through their parents, because we believe in the importance of the whole family.
Luego empezamos, la obra creció, empezó una guardería, la que vimos en el video, para permitir a los padres, sobre todo a las madres, ir a trabajar.
We began the work, we developed a daycare that you see in the video to allow the parents to go and work and have a place where their kids will be safe.
Luego los niños se volvieron grandes y empezaron a ir a la escuela básica. Y recuerdo un día que un grupo de madres vinieron donde mí y me dijeron.
Afterwards, the students began to grow up and start primary school. And I remember a day when a group of moms came to me and said,
ustedes nos enseñaron a ser madres de nuestros hijos. Ahora que van a la escuela, queremos seguir siendo nosotros, a acompañar a nuestros hijos en las tareas. Y no que ustedes nos hagan el apoyo escolar.
So you've taught us to be mothers for our kids, but now that they're going to school, we want to be able to continue helping them with their schoolwork.
Entonces armamos todo un programa de acompañamiento familiar para enseñar a los padres a ser realmente educadores de sus hijos.
So we began a program of accompaniment for parents to help parents to really be educators for their kids throughout their kids' whole childhood.
Que en poco tiempo se especializó en el tema del maltrato de las mujeres, de manera que complementamos, porque esto es un fenómeno que hasta aquel momento era oculto, porque no nos habíamos dado cuenta, y cuando vimos la entidad del fenómeno del maltrato en contra de las mujeres, este programa de acompañamiento familiar incluyó toda esta parte.
This quickly took on a new focus in combating the abuse and mistreatment of women. This was something that was a little bit hidden in the community, but through these efforts and these relationships with the families, it came to light. And so we've continued to work to address those issues with our families.
Luego los niños se volvieron grandes, empezaron a ir a la escuela, al bachillerato, adolescente, bachillerato, entonces armamos un programa para los jóvenes, especialmente para el estudio, el trabajo, el tiempo libre de ellos.
And then when our first group of kids reached the age of high school, late high school, and then on to college, we began a program of job skills training and also helping them to manage their time and their free time and their studies to sort of continue accompanying them along that part of their journey.
Y especialmente el trabajo, porque para nuestros jóvenes no solo hay muy pocas oportunidades, sino no hay modelos, no hay ejemplos frente a ellos de donde ellos puedan aprender y escoger después de la escuela superior, del bachillerato.
For many of our kids, it's not just that they don't have opportunities, but also that they don't have any role models in their life to show the way of how to have success.
Luego, lo más bonito de toda nuestra obra, que define un poco nuestro método, es que las 25 personas que trabajan con nosotros, la mayoría son son personas que han crecido con nosotros humanamente, profesionalmente. De manera que son las que más, logran dar a los suyos lo que han recibido.
For me, one of the most beautiful things is that 25 of the people who work with us have grown with us through the program and now are giving back the things that they have received to our program.
Y que sigan recibiendo, porque otro enfoque de nuestro método es no podemos educar sin educarnos.
And also it's important that they continue to grow and develop, because another focus of our program is that we cannot educate others without continuing to educate ourselves.
Nosotros queremos con nuestro trabajo que las personas crezcan y que crezca el contexto en el cual viven.
Above all, we want through our work that people grow, that persons grow, and widen the context of their own lives.
Reconociendo con nuestra ayuda el valor infinito que tienen.
And that they recognize, with our help, the infinite value that they have.
Todos sus talentos, todas sus capacidades.
All of their talents and skills that they have.
Ahora, sobre la pandemia, cuando empezó la pandemia, para nosotros estuvo claro que no podíamos cerrar porque era el momento que nuestra gente más nos necesitaba.
Then when the pandemic began, it was clear to us that we could not close our activities because that was the moment when our people needed us the most.
Y entendimos desde el inicio que era el momento para verificar si lo que nosotros ofrecíamos a nuestra gente se sostenía en una situación tan difícil.
It was also a time for us to verify if the activities and the things that we offer to people could be sustained during such a difficult time in a difficult context.
Porque desde nuestro inicio, nosotros siempre hemos defendido nuestra identidad, que no es dar ayuda material, sino educación.
Because since our beginning, we've always defended our methodology, which is not necessarily to give material help, but to educate.
Pero cuando la gente, después de pocas semanas del inicio de la pandemia, empezaba a no tener para comer,
but then when the people, after only a couple of weeks of the pandemic, began to not have food to eat,
era el momento en que teníamos que verificar si esto se sostenía y qué era lo que la persona de verdad más necesitaba.
It was the moment to ask ourselves if what we had been doing was enough and could sustain, and in this moment, what people really needed the most.
Claro, nosotros desde el inicio empezamos a movernos, a buscar ayudas también de otras organizaciones para dar alimentos a nuestra gente, ¿no?
We began to reach out to other organizations to partner with them and receive help from them to give food and food supplies to our people.
Creamos como empleados de la fundación un fondo de salud con nuestro propio sueldo, con parte de nuestro sueldo, para responder a esta necesidad de la salud de nuestra gente.
We created a fund using part of our own salaries to help pay for food assistance for these people.
Y armamos a través de también una campaña local de recogida de equipos tecnológicos usados, armamos un espacio de conectividad desde el mes de octubre para jóvenes y niños que no tenían la posibilidad de conectarse en su casa.
We also created an internet access connectivity program starting in October, a space where young people could come and be able to connect to the internet for all of their needs for school and other things.
Pero esto no fue lo más importante que hicimos durante este año para nuestra gente.
But this was not the most important thing that we did during this time for our people.
Para mí, para mi gente, mis colaboradores, lo más importante ha sido tomar conciencia de la fuerza de nuestro planteamiento, todo enfocado sobre la educación y el acompañamiento de la persona.
For me and my team, the most important thing was, perdón, Steffi, ¿puedes repetir la última parte?
Tomar más conciencia de la fuerza de nuestro planteamiento enfocado todo sobre la educación y el acompañamiento de la persona.
To become more aware of the strength and the need for our program of accompaniment in education and just for the whole person throughout their life.
Y ahí cuento 3 hechos y con esto cierro, en donde para mí demuestran también históricamente, o sea, el recorrido que hemos hecho en este año, desde el inicio hasta el momento actual. El primer hecho, perdón.
And with this, we discovered 3 facts that I will close with to kind of summarize the journey of this past year.
Entonces, el primero ha sido pocos días después de que empezó la pandemia y nosotros habíamos cerrado las actividades.
The first came a few days after the beginning of the pandemic when we had closed our activities.
Y hago una conexión con un grupo de jóvenes que estamos acompañando, una conexión en Zoom, un diálogo sobre el momento, ¿no?, que se estaba viviendo y cómo para entender cómo estaban.
I opened a dialogue with a group of young people that we were working with to sort of talk about the moment and understand how they were experiencing it.
Entre estos jóvenes estaba Alejandra, que actualmente tiene 19 años y actualmente es una educadora contratada hace un mes de los niños más chiquitos de la Fundación Sembrar.
Among this group was a 19-year-old young woman named Alejandra, who now today is a teacher with Sembrar and takes care of some of the youngest kids in our program.
Y cuenta que en su casa la situación era muy difícil con su familia. Luego hay que considerar que las casas de nuestra gente son casas muy chiquitas, de pocos metros cuadrados. Las relaciones familiares son muy difíciles, ¿no? Entonces esta chica estaba sufriendo.
And when I asked Alejandra about the situation, she described how the situation in her house was very difficult. It's important to remember that most of the people we're talking about live in very small houses, and their family relations can sometimes be strained and difficult.
Se había enojado en un momento dado con su familia, con su mamá, y era el momento del almuerzo.
She at one moment had been angry with her family, with her mom, and at this moment was lunchtime.
Y se acordó en este momento de cómo en el centro juvenil, con nosotros, había aprendido a arreglar la mesa.
And she remembered in this moment that in Sembrar's Center for the Kids, she had learned how to set the table.
Y preparó la mesa así, como lo había aprendido de nosotros. Y mientras lo hacía, ella contaba, nosotros estábamos adentro de ella e inmediatamente le pasó el enojo.
So she began to set the table exactly the way she had learned to do it at Sembrar, and she said that in that moment they were with her and the anger left her.
Y yo cuando escuché este hecho, vi la fuerza de lo que a esta chica le habíamos donado ahí con nuestro trabajo.
And with this story, I really saw the strength that through our work we had given to this young girl.
Era una amistad, amigos que estaban adentro de ella.
It's a friendship really, where we were her friends that were there inside of her in that moment.
y una forma de hacer las cosas y de estar en la familia que ella había asimilado y que la pandemia estaba haciendo salir a flote, estaba mostrando en su verdad.
It was also, we had also helped her learn a way of living and a way of relating to friends and family that in the context of the pandemic has just become more and more clear to us.
Luego, el segundo hecho es del mes de mayo, cuando empezamos a distribuir kits de alimentos a las familias.
The second example is from May, when we began distributing the food kits to people.
Yo fui a distribuir directamente los kits de alimentos y pasamos un día visitando familias que estaban viviendo situaciones muy difíciles, gente sin trabajo, comiendo una vez al día porque no tenía.
I personally went out and did some of the distribution, and we visited families who were in very desperate situations. People had lost their jobs. A lot of people were only eating once a day because they didn't have enough food.
Hasta que llegamos donde una señora, la señora Rosa, que me acuerdo como si fuese ayer, y que tenía una cara menos desesperada de las otras.
And then I remember I encountered Señora Rosa. I remember it like it was yesterday. She had a face that was less hopeless, more hopeful than the other people.
Y yo, mientras la escuchaba hablar, entendí como nunca las palabras del Salmo 8. ¿Qué es el hombre para que te acuerdes de él? Y después sigue el Salmo, porque lo has hecho un poco más bajo de los ángeles y lo has coronado de gloria y de honor.
And as she spoke, I remembered the words of Psalm 8. What is man that you remember him? Steffi, ¿puedes repetir la última parte del Salmo?
Porque lo has hecho un poco más bajo de los ángeles y lo has coronado de gloria y de honor.
Because you have made him a little less than the angels, and you have crowned him with glory and honor.
Y yo desde ahí y hasta el momento actual me siento de decir que con mis colaboradores aquí en Fundación Sembrar somos más conscientes del valor de la persona, que es infinito y que nada lo puede llenar.
And that moment helped me realize that me and all of the collaborators, the team here at Sembrar, and everybody involved in our work, we are made for the infinite, and nothing can fill us completely.
La necesidad material es como una grada que introduce hacia algo que es más profundo y infinito. Si se entiende, ¿no?
Yeah, and the material needs are sort of a gateway that leads us to understand needs that are much deeper and greater.
El último hecho rápidamente, que para mí es un punto que no podemos hacer vuelta atrás, es lo que ha sucedido en nuestro trabajo en ocasión de las elecciones del presidente, que fue el domingo pasado.
The third and final fact that we can't leave out is what has happened with our work in the presidential election in Ecuador, which happened just last Sunday.
Lo que ha pasado es que en diciembre hubo una primera vuelta en febrero y la segunda vuelta el domingo pasado. Y en diciembre, durante un encuentro siempre con nuestros jóvenes, un educador nuestro preguntó que iban a votar. Y nuestros jóvenes dijeron que no sabían o que iban a votar casualmente, no, cosas así.
So the first election was in January, and then there was a second round just last week. But in December, in one of our meetings with our group of young people, we asked them if they were going to vote, and many of them responded that no, probably not, or maybe, or it depends, not really sure. They didn't have a good idea of how to vote or if they were going to vote.
Y lo cuenta en una reunión de trabajo con algunos miembros de nuestro consejo de administración, que son personas muy comprometidas con la sociedad, la economía, la política del país, del Ecuador.
And then I remember in a meeting with our board of directors, which is a group of people who are very committed to sort of the social, political life of Ecuador.
Y estos miembros de nuestro consejo de administración, 5 personas, se ofrecen a empezar una serie de diálogos con nuestros jóvenes, con nuestros padres de la fundación, para aclararse criterios sobre las elecciones del presidente.
So the 5 people on our board of directors offered to start a series of dialogues with our parents and with our kids about the elections.
Entonces, esta es una cosa que en Ecuador no existe. Veo a mi amiga Francesca Piana, que está conectada y sabe perfectamente que el Ecuador es un país muy clasista. O sea, es un país donde la sociedad, la sociedad alta, esta gente comprometida, no se encuentra nunca con los pobres, con los que viven en los cuartieres, en los barrios donde nosotros trabajamos.
And I can tell you that this is something that doesn't ever happen in Ecuador. Ecuador is a very classist country, and there's a large divide between these high-class people that are very committed to the socio-political trends, and then people like our families who are living off in these neighborhoods apart from the high society, if you will.
Y lo que sucedió en estos meses, hasta la pasada semana, es que han habido una serie de encuentros, de diálogos en Zoom, ¿no? Claramente, entre nuestra gente de Pistolela Rol 2, donde trabajamos, y en nuestro directorio de gente, donde se hablaba libremente, realmente libremente, de política, de sociedad, de economía, de trabajo, de familia.
So what happened then was a series of Zoom meetings, encounters between our people who we serve in Pisuli and La Roldos and our board of directors, where they spoke very openly about politics, the economy, jobs, career, everything you can imagine.
Y para mí, en ese sentido, ya con esto acabo, y por esto es un punto donde no podemos volver atrás, porque yo he entendido más con estos encuentros que el cambio de la sociedad, del país, del Ecuador, empieza desde abajo. Empieza con el encuentro interesado por su propia vida y por la vida de los demás.
And through this experience, I understood that any change that comes in Ecuador is going to come from below, from the people who we work with who are at the bottom, but who offer that potential to really unite our society.
Y con esto no tengo nada más. No quiero quitar más tiempo a los otros.
And with that, I close.
Gracias, Steffi. Thank you, Steffi. Well, that was a great start, Steffi. Thank you. I mean, I think for many of you, the work of Fundación Sembrar might be a bit new. Maybe you haven't heard of it so much. There's really a lot more to learn and to know about Sembrar. But it's beautiful, especially this idea that you shared, which is that that there's a friendship that they carry within them, right? That even despite the pandemic and the lockdown and everything, that they weren't alone, right? Because they've been changed, they've been touched, they've been changed. Beautiful. Okay, so let's go to Brazil, and we're going to have our friend Adriano tell us about a different educational space, a different school. So over to you, Adriano, who's going to do us the favor of speaking in English.
I think you're muted, Adriano.
Okay, I'm lucky to serve and observe this wonderful thing that is the Escola Agrícola Rainha dos Apóstolos de Manaus. Manaus it's at the very center of the Amazon. That's here, okay? And every marker here is the origin, the place of origin of one of our students. And why the school is relevant. I'd like to try to explain this with an example. So this area here, you see my mouse, right? Okay. This area here, it's at the crossroads between Peru, Colombia, and Bolivia. And here lives a former student of the school named Adriana. And she's really poor. She saved for years in order to be able to send her daughter, 13 years old, to study at our school. I mean, the real cost was the trip, because the school charged something like $50 per day, lodging included. So it's not, and I think that she didn't even pay that. But the real cost was the journey, was the trip. This is a trip that's done via ferry, and it's a 5-day trip. That's just 5 days because they are going downhill. Okay, and so why? I mean, this is something like New York, Chicago in terms of distance. So why a poor woman here at the border of Brazil makes such an effort in order to have her daughter study here? Well, basically, for her, it was the only way out of the drug cartel that rules this area. So this is the value of the school, at least for Adriana. And well, of course, this is a sort of an extreme case. But you see, here there are people that do, well, this is Orishima, it's 5 days, it's a 5 days trip. Barcelos, it's a two days trip, okay? So all these students share something with Adriana's daughter. That's they're poor. This is one house, typical house of students of our school, and they are relatives of alumni. So we have the second and third generation of students coming in right now. So Monsignor Frigeni is is the guy with the headband. 40 years ago, founded the school with another priest friend of him that was Massimo Cenci, who died some years ago. And he recently said that even 40 years ago, he realized that the agricultural school there was really a great opportunity. And I would add that it's truer now than 40 years ago. Manaus was born a port city. Some images from the history. Here at the far right, there's Darlete, that is now director of the school. And Manaus was born a port city, grew with the rubber boom at the beginning of 1900. And when the boom ended, they steered the economy towards manufacturing. Okay, so for example, Honda, Suzuki, Samsung, all have their factories there because there are tax cuts. Okay, so Manaus is this very strange city that's a manufacturing city at the heart of the Amazon. And so basically, they neglected agriculture, and Manaus, until now, is importing 80% of the food that they eat. So basically, every onion that the 2.5 million Manauaras eat daily goes up to the Amazon River from the Belém port here. It does this nice little trip of 1,000 miles. So when we say that the zero food miles agriculture, that's something that is important here. It's not just a fad, okay? And the other thing that the reason why it's important is that there's been a decline in manufacturing. So Manaus is looking for other areas of economic development. Agriculture is one of them. Our students find jobs very easily, or they decide to go on and attend college. Okay. The big emphasis of the school is the practical training. So you can see here, this relatively small area is where the offices and the classrooms are. All these that are marked here are crops or farms, okay? And we have another area that's something like 100 hectares. That's pure forest that we most probably will start developing in a project that will start in the next years. Okay, and so the focus is on practical training. And the 120 students do theory in the morning, practice in the afternoon. And those without practice means working in the field. Okay. And those that are the majority that don't have yet the high school diploma have classes in the evening in the same structure. And this is 6 days a week. So it's hard work for our kids. The other major focus of the school is sustainable agricultural techniques. But farming in the Amazon is not easy. The fertile layer is thin, the soil is acidic, rains, sunshine are extreme. For example, greenhouses, here we have some, are made not to increase the temperature of the crops, but to shelter them from direct sun rays. Okay? And doing good agriculture even costs less, because if you use pesticide or fertilizer, well, you have to get from Belém, and it's 1,000 miles with the related costs. Okay. And but most important, some images of the school, classrooms. Well, this is the auditorium, chapel. Some buildings, our crops, farming. We have classes also of how do you say, rising flowers. I mean, and so the most important thing for us, practical training, theory, etc. So technical training, but without care and dedication to the full human education of kids, we don't stand a chance to succeed in this part, because they have a completely different mindset. And this is particularly true for the Indian tribes. We have always 10, 15 kids from Indian tribes. And this one, let's make the example of Edmison. That's this kid. He comes from a tribe that's called Sataremawe. And Edmison, like all the male teens of his tribe, must pass through a ritual of coming of age. Okay, so the ritual starts when they gather ballet ants. Ballet ants are ants, and the name comes from the how much they hurt when they bite you. Okay, so they collect these ballet ants, they drag them, they they are then sewed to a fabric of leaves. Okay, then and this fabric is then molded in order to create kind of gloves. Okay, then the ants are left to wake up. So imagine that you wake up after an hangover with tied, packed, and with your only outlet for your discomfort is your sting. Okay, here is an example of the interior of these gloves. Well, the ritual is that the kids must put their hands in the glove, stay there for something like 15 minutes. The net result of that is that they can't use their hands for a couple of days after this ritual. And the worst is yet to come, because they must repeat this along their adolescence, something like 18, 20 times. So picture this: when the first time is hard, the second time is terrifying, because you know what what the experience will be. So what do they see when they see something? What's their mindset? I'm not judgmental, I'm purely factual. Okay, by the way, this tribe is third generation Catholic, so it's not that they came out of the woods yesterday morning. There's a long tradition of education. Okay, and but okay, this is again is an extreme case, but less dramatically, the schedule: waking up every morning and go to work, stick to a schedule. These are habits that are not a given for our students, must be taught with patience day by day. So it's really impressive that after 3 years, well, okay, and these are the kids working in the field. And you don't see people, well, if I were subjected to a schedule like this, I mean, wake up at 6 and work at up to 10 p.m. Well, I guess that I will faint after a couple of, well, I wouldn't be very productive starting from the early afternoon. Okay, but I will be angry and pissed and reacting, and I'm not well, I've been an adolescent many years ago. Okay, so but look at the face. These are not faces of angry kids. Okay, and these sort of pics that we took, it was not something like a photo set with people standing in position. These are day-to-day things, no? And another thing that's surprising is how much they came out attached to the school. I mean, we can post anything on our Facebook page, and we have tens and sometimes hundreds of comments, likes of alumni talking enthusiastically of the school. And this is something that really surprised me. And it is a testament to to the human care that especially Darlete and Celso, his husband, that is the other director of the school, put into this. And okay, it wouldn't be possible to teach them techniques if it weren't for this human involvement. Okay, and when the Laudato Si, the encyclica, I don't know the English term, came out, and it introduced the term integral human ecology. And when I got to know the school, I say, okay, this is the phase of the integral human ecology that the encyclica was referring to. And another thing that strikes me a lot is that these kids showed me what is a religious man. I realized that after, well, I've been Catholic 40 years, and I realized with them that I am an atheist. I'm a hardcore atheist, because I believe in what I can do. Okay. Knowing them, I saw for the first time real religious people, and it's really refreshing. It's a change of perspective that helped me immensely. So the big thing about the school for me is that it is precious. It's precious for me, and at least for all of my friends. And I hope that, well, the bad thing of COVID is that we cannot organize a trip there. But as soon as we can, I would love to have you there and look for yourself. Well, these people, well, and then there is a nature that's incredible, but the people are even more wonderful. Okay, impact of COVID. We have been hit hard, not in terms of infection or deaths. Luckily, we didn't have any student affected. 2 teachers were infected but recovered quite soon. We had deaths with close friends, relatives, but it was not something that directly hit the school. But what was hard for us is that basically crops and farming means maintenance. This is the result of a particularly violent rainstorm in our greenhouse. So if you build that again the next day, you have something. If you let this loose, basically you are ruining all your capital invested in years of for having these crops. Okay, so we had to keep on maintaining all the structure, and we had to close the school. Luckily, we managed to have just a couple of months we have to stop just for a couple of months, because we have a structure where social distancing is easy. And but basically the practice of the students were one of the main source of work of this maintenance work. And again, testament to the link, emotional link, human link that the students have with us. We asked 50 of them, the 50 of our students that were that are living nearby, to give us a hand in this task, and they did. So it was outside of any kind of curriculum, they were not getting credits, etc. But they helped us and all the teachers to maintain all our structure. And another thing that, well, you see here, some classes we managed to continue the classes. And yeah.
Adriano, sorry to interrupt. You've captivated us all. I think we're all captivated here by these stories and the pictures, but we need
I'll make it short.
Yes, we need you to wrap up so we can get to Socorro.
Sure. Well, the thing is, a small group of kids couldn't go back to their houses when we closed the school because there were no ferries. Okay, and so they're remaining in the school, and this was challenging and interesting. Challenging because we have to, well, create activities for them, etc. But what we saw that with this added contact and close contact, the ones that were struggling opened up. And when we resumed classes, they were really much able to follow all the theory that we were trying to explain to them. So this reinforced in us the understanding that we need more time with them. And we used to have a 4-year cycle of studies. And we had to cut down when we had our funds cut from the state. So what came out really clear for us from all this situation is that we need to come back to go back to 4 years of training for having really a stronger education for our kids. And last thing, the other learning is that we need to do this in presence. We cannot work online because the subjects are inherently physical, and because there's no coverage in the middle of Amazon. So we tried with one subject matter, and we managed to have just 25% of our students connected even with phones, not even with Zoom or PCs. So that's it. Sorry, because I got carried away.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Adriano. I think I was captivated too. I think we all were. Okay, so I'm sorry that that this is going a little bit longer than we had planned, but we're going to continue, and hopefully you can stay with us. Now we're going to hear from Socorro. So from Socorro from Mexico, and I'll do my best to translate for Socorro. Are you there, Socorro? ¿Lista?
Sí, perfecto.
Okay.
Bueno, si ponen la primera, por favor. Bueno, como todos saben, la organización pues se fundó desde 1993 y trabajamos en un contexto muy parecido al de Steffi en Ecuador, con estas casi mismas características. Para ir más rápido, voy a ir pasando rápida las fotografías, ¿no? Bueno, la misión es...
Espera. So as Socorro was saying,
sí.
Sembrar, Crecemos was founded in 1993 in a context in Oaxaca, which is very similar to that of Sembrar in Ecuador, very similar characteristics of a kind of an urban, poor neighborhood.
Ajá. Nuestra misión es el desarrollo humano a través de 3 programas principales, que es nutrición, educación y escuelas sociodeportivas.
So the mission
por favor.
The mission of the organization is full human development through 3 programs, nutrition, education, and sports and physical development.
Next, please. Bueno, aquí es una de las actividades que estamos tratando de hacer la prevención del COVID con las mamás, ¿no? Aquí en esa foto se explica. Bueno, en nuestra metodología es buscar mejorar la educación a través principalmente de centros de desarrollo comunitarios. Los centros de desarrollo comunitario son espacios físicos que nos permiten el desarrollar estas actividades y ser una referencia en la comunidad.
Okay, so the photo that we saw earlier was prevention of COVID. And sorry, I'm going to interrupt. Roberta, can you show us just one slide and not the slide and the notes? We're seeing the slide and the next slide and the panel of slides at the bottom. Perdón, Soco, me estaba confundida. Muy bien. Okay, so this is they were teaching prevention of COVID, but then she was getting to the methodology, right, which was education, and they do this through community development centers, which are reference points for education and human development in the communities. Sí, Soco, perdón.
Bueno, next, la siguiente. Bueno, ¿qué hemos vivido durante esta pandemia? Bueno, estos son el Centro María de Guadalupe, es uno de nuestros centros en una de las comunidades de la Mixteca.
So what happened during this time of pandemic? Here you see the picture with the orange walled building is the Our Lady of Guadalupe Center in Monte Albán neighborhood.
Actualmente tenemos 4 centros, uno en la zona que está cercana a Guatemala, el que está en la ciudad de Oaxaca y 2 en la Mixteca.
So there are 4 centers currently, one that's in the region down towards Guatemala, one in Monte Albán, which is the one we see, and then 2 in a region called La Mixteca.
Bueno, ahora respondiendo un poco a las preguntas sobre cómo hemos vivido en esta situación del COVID. Nosotros, dada la necesidad de entender cómo nuestros procesos realmente están impactando en la calidad de vida de los niños, hemos trabajado mucho en la cuestión de hacer evaluaciones, seguimientos, trabajo con familias, pero sí para nosotros siempre ha sido como una pregunta grande de decir, ¿y esto cómo realmente en los servicios que damos les ha cambiado la vida?
So in this time of pandemic, they've been really trying to understand what the impact has been on the quality of life of the people that they serve. So for many years, they've been doing evaluations and follow-up, especially on the issues of malnutrition and others. But the big urgent question has been have their services and their methodology really been changing people's lives?
Y para eso, cada año hacemos nuestro plan anual, nuestro plan anual operativo.
And every year they do an annual operational plan.
Y cuando empezamos con la pandemia decíamos, bueno, ahora parecía que íbamos a perder todo nuestro camino recorrido en todos nuestros procesos porque ya no íbamos a poder hacer las mismas cosas y de la misma forma.
So when the pandemic started, they thought, oh man, we're going to lose all the work that we've done. We're going to get off track, and all the processes that we have put into place are going to be lost.
Y entonces lo que hicimos es trabajar en función del semáforo epidemiológico estatal, o sea, ir viendo cómo la Secretaría de Salud nos iba a ir permitiendo trabajar.
Okay, so they decided to follow the state guidance. I guess she's using this concept of semáforo, which is like a stoplight, which was guidance coming from the state health department on how to adapt their activities.
Y cómo seguir haciendo lo que nos interesaba hacer sin perder el punto de las relaciones con las familias.
And most of all, how can they continue doing what is important to them without losing the relationship with the families, which is really the most precious thing.
Entonces empezamos a hacer como un pequeño diagnóstico para entender con qué contábamos nosotros, con qué contaban las familias para poder continuar haciendo el trabajo y yéndolas a visitar.
Okay, so then they began to do a little diagnostic survey or study in which they really looked carefully at the kind of resources that they have and the resources that the family has and just the conditions, so they could figure out how they could continue to reach them within the conditions of the pandemic and the constraints.
Porque había muchos ofrecimientos en ese momento de gente interesada en poder ayudarlos.
Perdón, Socorro.
Pero al final no respondía a la realidad de ellos, ni de la necesidad que tenían en ese momento.
Perdón, Socorro, dijiste que habían mucha gente, otras personas que querían responder, pero no respondió a las necesidades. ¿O puede ser?
O sea, por ejemplo, concretamente nos decían, bueno, un ejemplo era que nos ofrecían tablets, pero si las personas no tienen internet, no responde a la necesidad, ¿no? Entonces teníamos que entender de qué forma podíamos responder.
Right. So she's saying that there were other offers of services or of things like tablets that arrived to them, but they really needed to figure out what did people need, because even if you had an offer of some tablets, that might not have been the right response to the real needs, because maybe there was no internet or anything else, so, to actually use them.
¿Qué era lo que la principal preocupación en ese momento era la falta de trabajo?
Our biggest worry was the lack of jobs, of work.
Entonces empezamos a construir con todo el equipo la forma de poder llevarles los alimentos sin perder nuestros procesos educativos.
So because people didn't have a lot of income, food was scarce, and our first priority was to figure out how to continue to bring them food without losing the point of method, which is so important to us, which is the educational value, the educational relationship.
Entonces fortalecimos principalmente la entrega de vegetales, frutas, con la propuesta de receta para que de alguna manera no se perdiera nuestra formación de hábitos en el consumo de alimentos saludables.
Okay, so when they put together these food kits, they put a lot of emphasis on fruits and vegetables, and they also included recipes in those food kits, because they really didn't want to lose the ground that they had made and all of the work done around building good eating habits and improving diets.
Nosotros apoyamos a niños. La comida que damos es para los niños, pero en este momento era la familia completa la que tenía necesidad de alimentos, y por la cantidad de niños que atendemos era imposible responder a todas las familias completas con los alimentos.
So traditionally, generally, Crecemos serves children, but of course, in this situation, when they're bringing food to the households, they had to look at the entire family living in that household. And so there was a problem of numbers here, where they couldn't reach all of the children and their families, which multiplied the numbers of food that they would have to give out.
Y fue muy bello descubrir que algunas familias nos decían, no nos traigan nosotros, hay otros que lo necesitan más, nosotros podemos sobrevivir.
And it was really beautiful how some families responded to them saying, look, we're really not that desperate. There are a lot of families out there that are worse off than we are, so please give the food to them.
Ajá. La siguiente, por favor. Sí. Y entonces en esto nos dimos cuenta que el contacto con las familias te permite llegar a un punto de relación en el cual ellas se convierten en parte de la solución al problema, cediendo muchas de ellas lo que en teoría les tocaría.
Okay. So what we understood in this relationship with the families was that in this dialogue, eventually they become part of the solution. And together we understand together what their real needs are.
También nos informaban las familias que tenían una necesidad que al final que no estaban en el programa inscrito, pero sabían que estaban viviendo un problema de enfermedad y se empezó a hacer una red de ayuda entre ellos, cosa que a nosotros nos facilitó mucho para poder responder a esta necesidad de apoyo, sobre todo en la cuestión de los alimentos.
Okay, so if I understood exactly what Socorro's saying, she's saying that in this work, the people began to express more their needs, especially health-related needs, and a network started to emerge among them, of people helping one another. And this kind of maybe solidarity helped them also, helped Crecemos also in terms of the food, getting the food out.
También en cuanto al equipo, favoreció mucho, por ejemplo, el equipo de cocina, el equipo de nutrición, estaban como muy preocupados en que les lleváramos la comida preparada para los que sobre todo estaban enfermos, pudieran no preocuparse ni siquiera en prepararlo, que les llegara una comida caliente, que les llegara los medicamentos. O sea, el equipo estaba como pensando de qué manera también poder responder a esto. Entonces, eso ayudó también a crecer al equipo operativo.
Okay, so she's saying how it was also beautiful to see how the team, especially the people who work in the kitchen at Crecemos, really responded in a beautiful way to the needs. And so, for example, when they were preparing the foods, they insisted that, of course, the food be prepared and ready to be eaten and even kept hot so that the people, especially those who were sick, that they were giving the food to, didn't have to spend a lot of time preparing the meal, but it was all ready and taken care of. They paid attention to people who needed to get their medicines. And it was really this growth in the operational capacity and kind of unity of the team.
También, por ejemplo, como el apoyo académico se convirtió en una dificultad para nosotros, dado la falta de internet o de tener un buen internet, nos vimos, por ejemplo, en decir, bueno, si ellos no pueden tener este acceso, lo que hicimos nosotros fue también llevarles cuentos, mucha literatura infantil a sus casas para que las mamás pudieran leer con sus hijos y bajar un poco el estrés del encierro y de los espacios pequeños.
So in front of the educational challenge, which of course was due to the fact that there's either no internet or not good internet, so there wasn't a lot of online learning happening. They decided to bring books to households, to the families themselves, a lot of children's literature. And they thought this was important not only to keep the kids learning and engaged, but it also kind of reduced the stress and the friction at the household level because they were, gave the kids something to do and put these books in the hands of the parents as well.
Y esto ha sido una sorpresa para nosotros porque lejos de alejarnos de nuestra gente, nos ha acercado más.
Mm-hmm. So this has been a surprise for us because instead of pulling us away from our families due to the pandemic and the lockdown, in fact, we've become closer to them.
Y que el método no se perdía porque con todas las actividades que realizamos, siempre cuidamos que llevara una expresión de la forma en cómo nosotros hacemos el trabajo. Okay. Que es buscando, por ejemplo, el que estuviera bien preparado, bien presentado, que cuando no podían salir de las casas, lo llevábamos a las casas, cuando ya se podía salir más, se los entregábamos en el comedor, pero cuidando sana distancia, cuidando las normas de higiene, o sea, como siempre siendo una propuesta educativa.
Okay, so she's been surprised at how the methodology has stood up to the test of all of the different regulations that they had to follow. So, for example, it's always been an important part of the method of Crecemos that all of their gestures be well taken care of and well presented and beautiful. So when they weren't able to serve food at the comedor, at the community center, they brought the food to the household, but well packaged, well presented with the recipes. But then when it was possible for people to start leaving their homes, they were invited to come to the center to pick up the food. But again, all of the details very well cared for, including the sanitization and the distancing and everything, which was important because basically the method that Socorro is communicating is that every gesture contains an educational proposal within it, even with all of these adaptations.
Bueno, en la próxima quiero compartir una conversación que tuve con una de nuestras familias. Hace 15 días falleció uno de nuestros niños que estuvo prácticamente desde que nació, tenía 13 años. Y es una familia que desde hace muchos años ha participado con nosotros, ¿no? Y entonces...
Socorro is going to share with us a conversation that she had recently, a few weeks ago. A boy who was part of the center since he was young was 13 years old and recently died. Okay, sí, soy Socorro.
Sí, bueno, ella se llama Josefina y yo le escribo diciéndole, y lo voy a leer textualmente un poco para que se entienda por qué lo quiero compartir con ustedes, ¿no? Esto sucedió 2 días después de la muerte del chico. José tiene a un niño que se llama José Manuel y José Manuel tiene un serio problema de desnutrición y anemia. Entonces, su situación es grave.
Ok, perdón, Socorro. Josefina es la mamá de...
Josefina es la mamá y José Manuel el niño.
Ajá, y el niño que falleció es otro.
Es otro.
Okay.
Ella es tía de Rodrigo, del que falleció.
Okay, perdón. Sorry, guys. So, Socorro's going to share with us a conversation with Josefina, who's the mom. She's, I think you said the tía, right? The aunt of Rodrigo, the boy who died. But Josefina herself is the mother of a son, José Manuel, who suffers from anemia and other things. So 2 days after Rodrigo died, they had this conversation.
Le escribí, querida José, entiendo por el momento que estás pasando difícil, pero José Manuel tiene su tratamiento y no podemos descuidar. Te esperamos hasta las 2. Ojalá puedas pasar.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Josefina is saying, perdón, no estoy leyéndolo bien. So we're sorry that you're passing through this difficult moment, but José Manuel has his treatment and we can't ignore it. We will wait a few more days and hopefully this will pass.
Y ella me responde, disculpe maestra, se me olvidó por completo. ¿Puedo ir? Apenas vi su mensaje.
Oh, I'm sorry. The mother was asking, can you pass? Hasta los dos, ojalá pases a mi casa, ¿verdad, Socorro? Dice,
que fuera por su tratamiento, por la comida especial que se le está dando.
Okay.
Sorry, if I can maybe help. I think the green is the green is the teacher and the white is the mom in the conversation.
Oh, I see.
So you had it reversed. Yeah.
I had it reversed. Oh, thank you, Colin. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, I wasn't understanding the text message well. So the teacher is telling the mom that you should pass by the center because you shouldn't forget to get his food because he's sick and he needs his food. Can you come by? And then she says, oh, I'm sorry, maestra, teacher, I forgot. Can I come by? I just saw your message.
Y yo le contesté, sí, ven. O sea, que fuera a recoger su comida.
Right, so Socorro says, yes, please come.
Me pone gracias y yo le digo un abrazo.
And she says a hug.
Y ella me contesta, muchas gracias, maestra, también porque siempre está con nosotros en todo momento. Es usted una persona muy valiosa para aquel que llega a tener su amistad.
Okay. So the mom, Josefina, responds back, thanks to you, teacher. They call Socorro maestra, because you're always with us in every moment, and you are a very brave person. who, for those of us who can call you as a friend, call you a friend.
Me impresiona porque al final lo que la mueve es más un afecto que, o sea, no es que no le mueva la necesidad de mejorar la salud de su hijo, pero lo que la mueve más en un momento tan difícil como este es un afecto que la ayuda a ubicarse en también esto que no podía dejar.
So what surprised Socorro in this interaction was that what is moving this woman, what moves us is an affection, is a friendship, even more than her awareness that her son has a need or the concrete needs. So she sees people being moved through this affection.
Entonces, para mí también ha sido un gran aprendizaje, que lo que más te mueve es esto, y la consecuencia ayuda a mejorar la salud del niño.
So it's just been a big learning for her, for Socorro, that what it moves us is affection, and the kind of improvement of the quality of life is almost a consequence of that root cause.
También dentro de todos los problemas que ha habido, por supuesto, la violencia ha sido uno de ellos, y una mamá que fue abandonada por el esposo porque se fue con otra mujer y la dejó sin dinero y sin comida. Entonces, en este momento, más que esperar que participe en la clase de estimulación temprana, ella lo que necesitaba es saber que estaba acompañando, que no estaba sola y que podían sus hijos seguir comiendo. Entonces, al final, no les podemos resolver toda la situación, no podemos darles trabajo a todos, pero sí podemos una comida caliente, una llamada, un mensajito, una llamada por teléfono, un decir aquí estoy, fortalece más la relación y mejora nos ayuda a mejorar nuestros procesos educativos, que al final es un trabajo el que hacemos nosotros y del cual sí se esperan resultados.
Okay, so she says that also in front of many situations of violence, which also increased in this time, the same methodology was needed to respond. And so she's describing about one woman who was abandoned by her husband, left alone without any money, and of course was desperate, right? So in front of that woman, rather than saying that really, rather than insisting that really what she needed was to bring her children to the early childhood classes, she could see that what she needed was to know that she wasn't alone, to know that somebody was there for her. And so, we can't be responding to, we will never be able to respond to all the needs and solve all of the problems. We can't give jobs to everyone. But what we can give is a place where people can come and receive a hot meal, yes, receive food, have some of their basic needs taken care of, but also find relationships, find the friendship that really, it responds at that human level, which is the most urgent.
Yo quisiera cerrar con esto diciendo que la verdad hemos tenido mucha incertidumbre, pero yo siempre recuerdo mucho, no sé por qué me ha ayudado mucho esto de decir, hay chicas que están haciendo aeróbics para ayudarnos a sostener esto. Entonces, sigamos. Gracias.
Okay, so Socorro saying that, of course, they've experienced a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, but for our friends who, especially those who are participating, if any are here, she recalls, she has very much, in her head, the image of people in the US doing aerobics online via Zoom as a fundraiser for her work at Crecemos. And to her, that's just been a big, source of inspiration of, we can do this, we can continue, we can keep going, because there are people who are with us.
Nosotros también necesitamos este acompañamiento.
Right. So her point is that we too need this accompaniment, just as the beneficiaries do. Bonito. Gracias, Socorro. That's a great way to conclude this part, because we need each other. That's kind of the conclusion. We really do need each other, need this opportunity to know what's happening in these other parts of the world, to be connected, to have the opportunity to give of ourselves. It's something that we all need. Let's see if there are any questions from anybody. You can feel free to open your mic or raise your hand, either way, but please don't be shy. Do we have any of did any of you who are here participate in the aerobics classes online? And if you do, you can certainly share your experience. No, you didn't, Renzo? I see you shaking. I see you shaking your head. Oh, Laura, you did.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yes, I did participate and they were very good. They were fun.
Good. Anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? I know we took longer.
Can I?
Please, Alvaro, please.
Okay, no, my question related to the impact of the COVID, and this is more a question to maybe to you, Jackie, just to understand in terms of the work of the advocacy, because I understand that you monitor, you help, you follow somehow all these activities in several countries, in several cities, and then came the pandemic. Okay, what has changed? Let's say the way that you obviously related to these partners, to these activities far away, like the Amazon or in Ecuador or in Mexico. No, how was the impact and how you adapt? I mean, how you managed to cope with this situation?
Oh, Alvaro, you asked me a good question. So no, I'll be quick on it, because really there are a lot of things. One is that we are more energized than even before at the role that we can play in linking organizations like the three we heard from today to donors, to institutions, to funding sources in the US, because they're so close to the communities that even in the time of pandemic, they were there, like we heard, right? And so the value of the truly local rooted organizations, which are truly the community serving themselves, serving their community, their friends, is just, it was already always important to us, but it's even more important because we can't travel. The international, staffing or whatever can't be going anywhere over this past year. So, but also because they're able to respond directly, to adapt immediately, to know the needs. I mean, things that had just gotten all the much harder for an international organization from afar, right? So we need them more. We see their value more, and we're energized even more to get funding to them. Another thing that's very concrete is that it's to sustain a work like these three is difficult, and a lot of our energy has gone into project-based funding, where a donor has specific outcomes they want to achieve in a certain timeline, as you know very well. But what Sembrar needed and Crecemos needed in this year was to be able to respond on day by day, and they needed that flexibility. So we also have more clarity around the need to support the partners, not only with project-based funding, but with this flexible kind of funding, which is really where donors come in. you know, because, you know, you may have you give us a lot of trust, you know, you put a lot of trust in the organization to use the funds well. And so we're able to pass on that trust and that flexibility to partners like these ones. So I'll leave it there. Anyone else? Sharon, did you want to ask something? You popped up to the top of my screen.
Actually, I do have a question for Adriano about the agricultural school. How are the alumni doing? Are they finding jobs or finding ways to farm in that area? I'm just curious.
Well, yes. I mean, many of our students come from family of farmers. Okay, so the net results of attending our school is improving the performances of their farms, small farms. I mean, and otherwise there's a market for, well, actually agriculture is big in Brazil. It has been, even in 2020, it was one of the few areas that grew in occupation. They had a net 3% jobs creation in 2020. So it's a good market. At the same time, we have to make a distinction between what we call agronegócio, that are the big business, the big agricultural business, and the small farmers that are our environment. Okay, so in terms of protection of the environment, the small farmers have some habits that are harmful of the environment. It comes from normally ignorance. So all our effort is to show them that, for example, rotation of the cultures, that's something really basic. It's not a practice that's usual, that's common, at least in the communities that we reach. Or composting, using the what would go to waste in order to fertilize the soil, this kind of stuff. So we are making an impact. We should be doing more. And one of the challenges that we have, one of the tests that we have, and AFSI, one of the projects that have been interrupted in order to have some flexibility needed in this moment, was for the upgrading of the technical capabilities of our teaching staff. We need to make advance in that, because we are a bit behind of the new developments, but we are making an impact with the limited resources that we have and the limited qualities that we have.
Well, thank you. It's really intriguing. I mean, what a challenge to come up against the drug cartels and that kind of thing. So it's amazing.
Nos non mexemos con os cartéis da droga. We are not going after the drug cartels.
No,
we just teach agriculture to the little kid.
No, the challenges.
We know our limits.
Sure.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Adriano, for that. Okay, so I think we'll start wrapping up. Before we end, I think most of you know how you can continue to support these three organizations. Crecemos, as many of you know, is a long-standing partner of ours. We have a special kind of set a group of very committed donors that's called this Opportunity Program for Crecemos, and you can find information about that on our website. We started to support the agricultural school 2 years ago now, and we're gaining some more momentum to continue to support the school. As Adriano hinted at, they have a lot of projects to continue to improve the school, the infrastructure, the training capacity, the training of the teachers, and all of that. So both of those projects you can find on our donate page quite easily. Now for Fundación Sembrar, we are supporting them in a very exciting campaign through the Global Giving crowdfunding platform. This is a way, while it's not, the donations go through a Global Giving platform, which is not an AFSI platform, but another one. It's a really powerful platform that allows us to reach a very, very wide number of donors, much wider than we as AFSI USA could ever reach. And it unlocks a lot of other donations that come through Global Giving, including a whole bunch of corporate sponsors. We had the experience last year or the year before with Crecemos, and the contributions that people contributed to Crecemos through Global Giving were multiplied exponentially because of these other funding sources that come through Global Giving. So all that to say that we hope you might consider, spread the word that Fundación Sembrar is trying to get on Global Giving. They're part of this accelerator campaign, which is going on right now. They're doing very well. They're ranking very high in the number amongst the other organizations that are competing for these spots on Global Giving. The link is there in the chat. Tomorrow is what they call a bonus day, where every donation that is given tomorrow will be doubled and will gain extra points for Sembrar, because this is kind of a competition to meet the minimum requirements, but also to go beyond. So the link for that is also in your chat. This is a great thing just to post on your Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn and just kind of spread the word, because Global Giving is very well respected and well known and very accessible. So thank you all for coming. Thanks especially to Socorro, Stefania, Adriano for making the time in the evening and sharing with us your experiences. We wish we had more time to hear from each of you. Maybe we'll have to divide this up next time and do one by one. But anyway, we did our best, and thank you for everyone for joining us and being together with us. We really do appreciate it greatly. So be in touch and have a good night. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Gracias.
Thank you to everybody.
Gracias. Hasta luego.
Thank you.
Bye,
Gracias.
Thank you.